Hey everyone, it's Lindsay, and for today's card, I want to do some paper piercing the old-fashioned way. So I started this card in Photoshop Elements. I brought in this digital stamp from Stamps for Joy. It is linked over on my blog if you want to check it out. Now I just brought this in onto a panel that was 4 inches by 5¼ inch panel. And I just enlarged this a little bit. I left space around all the sides and just placed it at the top center of my panel. Now right below that I used just a brush script font and I typed out Merry Christmas. I printed this off onto regular white cardstock with my laser printer because I was using alcohol markers. I knew I wanted to color with these, so I printed with the laser printer. And then I just trimmed it out with my paper trimmer using the crop marks that I made sure to print. So this was a really simple panel to create. Nothing spectacular here, just a digital stamp and using my type tool. Now once I printed this out and trimmed it out, I brought in my alcohol markers. I started off with my poinsettias and I just put down a layer of my lightest color, and then I came in with my 2 darker colors and I just deepened up the shadows and also the vein lines that are in the flowers, and then I used my lightest color to blend that back out. I also use my very darkest red to fill in the center of each flower, and I will also use that same red for the berries. Now I kept all of my colors very dark and very rich. I wanted a more vintage feel to this panel, but this is one of those stamps that you could switch up the colors, make it more vibrant, make it more fun, and really change the entire feel of the card. I wanted to keep mine vintage and kind of elegant feeling, so I went with my darker shades. Now I'm using my darkest red there just to fill in those berries very quickly, and then I came back in with some greens to fill in my leaves. Now for these I used my lightest shade to completely fill in the surface area of the leaf, and then I came in with the darker shade and just went over those vein lines that are in there, and I didn't blend this out at all. I left them very dark and very pronounced. Now for the candles, I wanted to go with cream colors, so I just used 2 different very light, almost yellow colors to fill in those candles. And then I came in with some yellow colors to fill in my candle holders to make them appear as if they are gold. Finally, I came in with a yellow, an orange, and a red just to quickly fill in the flames of the candles. Now, because I printed with a laser printer, I can foil my sentiment. So I'm just taking a piece of ThermoWeb's gold foil. This is just one I had left over from another project. I'm going to place that over my sentiment, close my little carrier sheet, which is simply a piece of computer paper that I folded in half, and I'll run this through my laminator, which is already heated up. It's ready to go. Now I knew I wanted to foil my sentiment, so I was careful not to touch my hand to it too much to take away that toner. So just make sure that when you color before you foil, just make sure you're careful around your sentiment with your hands. Now once I ran this through, I can go ahead and open up my carrier sheet, and I did use a piece of tape just to hold that foil in place, but it will come right off as you can see, and I can peel up this foil and I've got a golden Merry Christmas sentiment on the bottom of my card ready to go. Now for my paper piercing, I'm going to be using my Tim Holtz ruler. It has these awesome little holes in it on the side with the tapered edge, and I have those grid lines in this ruler so I can easily line this up on my paper. I do have a piece of fun foam underneath this just so it doesn't hurt my cutting mat, and it also just helps those holes look a whole lot neater because it pokes through to that foam. It just gives it a more crisp appearance. I'm also using a paper piercing tool from Stampin' Up, but you could also use a safety pin, a straight pin, whatever you have on hand that fits through that hole that will punch a hole in your paper. So I started just about 1/4 inch in from the side, maybe 1/8 inch, and I'm using those grid lines to help me line that up on the edge of the paper. There you can see I've got those holes in there, and it's just very simple. It is a little bit tedious, but it's well worth the effort. Now you can have dies that do this for you, however I do not have paper piercing ones and I wanted that look. So I decided to just use the old-fashioned way and use my Tim Holtz ruler to go ahead and put that in. Now if you don't have the Tim Holtz ruler, you could by all means do this freehand. You could come in with a pencil and make pencil marks every so often, and then when you're happy with it, just come back and punch holes over your pencil marks. This doesn't have to be any fancy tool or die or anything like that. You can make do with what you have. So I'm just turning my paper and lining my Tim Holtz ruler up as I go along. And again, I'm just punching holes in there. Now you can see through this ruler, it is clear, so you can see through those holes and make sure you line it up with your previous side so you know where to start and where to end. So this is a great tool to really help you out. But like I said, make do with what you have. Now I am on my third side here, so I am just using one hand to hold this down and the other to put the punch mark or the punch holes in it. Make sure you hold your ruler in place. This does slide around pretty easily. If it does, you can see through it to line it back up, but it's really best just to keep a firm grip on it and just to move kind of quickly, but make sure you're not sliding that ruler around as well. So I'm just finishing up this last side here, and once you get a rhythm going, it really goes very quickly. You can see I'm moving a lot quicker on this side than I did my first one, and that foam underneath is catching all of my extra holes, so I'm not ruining my work surface as well. Once I pull this up, you can see I've got a nice paper pierced rectangle that's ready to go on my card, and that is all the extra little oomph this card needed. I'm just going to go ahead and put some double-sided adhesive on the back of this. I'm not putting any adhesive over those punched holes just because I don't want it to be seen through on the front side of the card. So I'm using very thin adhesive and staying away from the holes. And then you just want to be careful too when you press this down and you press over those holes. You don't want to press the paper back through the front. So just be a little bit more careful when you're working with your adhesive. I'll go ahead and peel the backing paper off of this, and then I'll adhere it to an A2 top folding red card base. Now I also did put some Wink of Stella over my candles and flowers and berries. The whole image I went ahead and put a nice generous layer on just for a little extra shine, and that's all this card needed. You could dress it up if you wanted to with some sequins or some ribbon, anything you wanted to, but I like to keep mine nice and clean and simple. And that paper piercing was all I needed to give it just that little something extra to set it apart. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I hope you too will try some paper piercing, whether it be the old-fashioned way or with a die. As always, I will leave you guys with just a few pictures. For more information and the supply list, you can head to my blog, craftingwhilecaffeinated.wordpress.com. The link is in the description box below. Thanks so much for watching, and happy crafting!